So I have some life updates for you. If you are familiar with me or with this channel, you know that I'm in a new location. This actually might be a surprise to some people, but we moved out of Brooklyn. Yeah. Okay. So that's one update, and I'll share more in a second. And then the second update is about these glasses that I'm wearing right now. Oh my goodness, the last few weeks have been really intense. So let me start with the first update. We are no longer in Brooklyn. We have moved to the Bronx. We never expected to be up in the Bronx. It's a beautiful borough, but, Brooklyn is our vibe, and we've always really liked Brooklyn. But we had in our last apartment the worst mouse infestation. And between that, which was really difficult to keep up with and to keep everything clean, literally there were droppings all the time everywhere for a few weeks, or I'd say maybe like for 1 week in particular. It just got to be so overwhelming, and we could not get a handle on these mice. We have a puppy, as you know, and we were just really nervous that he would catch a virus from these mice, especially since the mice seemed to be really attracted to his treats and his food. And it was just so scary for us. Between that and the fact that my brother was moving out of his Bronx apartment, and the Bronx apartment, this place that we're in right now, is much bigger than the Brooklyn apartment, and also the rent is much lower. Initially, we just asked him if we could spend a few days here while we tried to get our apartment clean. At the time, he was looking for subletters, and it just made sense for us eventually to make a clean break and take ourselves up here. And it was actually not an easy decision. It was very overwhelming to have to deal with this mouse problem. But in the end, it feels right because we're also going to be saving money, and it's a bigger space. And there's also a really nice park nearby that Sony really likes, that Sony's allowed to go to. There were a lot of parks in the area of Brooklyn that we lived in that actually dogs were not allowed in. So that is one major life update. We now live in the Bronx. The second life update is a little more personal, believe it or not. For the last few months, my eyesight has been really bothering me. And this is something that I've experienced before. My eyes were really, really, really bothering me back at the very beginning of business school, which I hardly shared with anyone. Very few people knew that I was experiencing a lot of eye pain. I don't know how to describe eye pain if you've never experienced it. It's not fun. It's like throbbing pain in the eyeballs. And back then, that was maybe 4 years ago when I first experienced this. Back then, I tried to see different doctors. I tried to get it taken care of somehow. I learned then that I had some vitamin deficiencies, and I thought maybe that's why my eyes are hurting. Nothing really explained it then. And eventually, after really pausing on my schoolwork for a few weeks, it kind of dissipated, but it never fully went away. It would come back and it would come and go. I also experienced really intense motion sickness anytime I was in any moving vehicle. Like, oh my goodness, the level of intensity was off the charts, especially when I was in the back seat of a car, like for Ubers and whatnot. That was so difficult for me because it meant that I felt very uncomfortable and very anxious every time I would get in an Uber. And the best time for me would be while I was driving, because if I drove, for some reason, my eyes would hurt a lot less and I would feel less motion sickness. Fast forward to maybe like a month and a half ago, gradually and in a short period of time, my eyes started really hurting again. It got to the point where about a month ago, I could not read. I could not read emails. I could not read articles. I was having such a hard time focusing my eyes on anything and allowing that to lead to productive work, which is really difficult. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. My entire business is surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion. I put a bunch of content together. I read a lot about the topic and have to stay up on the news and end up sharing a lot of details and information on the YouTube channel associated with my business and on our blog, all of that. It was especially stressful when I felt like I didn't have a solution for this. Well, one day we were in Toronto, and I will be sharing our trip to Toronto in just a bit. So you'll see that video come up in a little while. But we were in Toronto and we had one of those Uber trips that caused just so much motion sickness. I literally was on the floor trying to study myself and trying to calm the motion sickness and also feeling really emotional. I was very, very, very emotional. And when you see the Toronto video, you won't be able to tell because you know how that is. Like we put on whatever we need to put on while we're in front of the camera or what have you. But that day in particular was really, really tough. And I went through a Googling spree, just Googling so many different things that could be causing the eye pain, the motion sickness and whatnot. Anyway, long story short, because I don't want this video to be too long, I found out that there's this thing called binocular visual dysfunction. I had no idea what it was before finding this online, but the second I read about it, it was very obvious to me that it was something that I had. Specifically, I felt that I'd had a vertical heterophoria, which all of these terms are terms that I had never heard of before, but it was a really intense Googling search. And mind you, this is a Google search that I'm doing through my painful eyes. I was so nauseous, so motion sick, and my eyes were hurting so much. And I'm literally like welling up in tears because of how frustrated I am by all of this. Yet I was just Googling furiously for a few hours and found this. And when I found it, the welled up tears broke. I was sobbing and showed Daniel that I think this is it. I am very pleased to share that I absolutely have vertical heritophoria. And this is essentially that your eyes are, if these are the pupils, it's essentially that your eyes are misaligned. So there's like a slight misalignment and your brain is working really hard to get those eyes aligned again. I needed prism glasses that I will be wearing 24/7. And when I put them on for the first time, it really felt like these are like fake or something. It almost felt like they're just like frames with clear lenses because it felt like nothing for me. But over the course of a few hours, the first time I wore them, my eyes, the pain started to slowly dissipate. And they actually felt like, my eyes felt like they were opening wider. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like magic. I feel so much better because the pain has now gone. Those two things over the last month and a half, literally since early August, late July, have been very much present in our lives. The mouse infestation, the what are we going to do? How are we going to navigate this? Should we move to the Bronx? And the eye pain, just immense eye pain, debilitating eye pain and motion sickness. So that's the update. And I'm looking forward to posting more videos and to getting back on schedule. So if you are not subscribed, please do. And we'll jump right back into it. If you have intense motion sickness or eye pain, or another symptom is dizziness, like when you stand up, dizziness, when you turn your head too quickly, dizziness. All of those things can be so functionally debilitating, and yet most eye doctors don't test for these binocular visual dysfunctions. So I'm not a doctor, but if someone had told me sooner that this is something that I could possibly have, I would have really appreciated it. So if that's you, check it out. And with that, I will see you in our next video.